According to your complaint, Dr. Richmond, you retained Ms. Gilbert's services because you were interested in publishing a book.
That is correct.
And she had, well, you had heard she had some expertise in assisting people to get their works published. You gave her approximately $2,500, and it is your claim that she really defrauded you because she was not working solely in your best interest. You want not only your money back, but you want twice that amount of money as punitive damages. So I have a few questions before we get into this. Had you written a book?
Yes, I did.
On the subject?
It was called The Healing Field, a story about myself, a psychiatrist, and one of my patients who was dying from anorexia. Only when I got out of the box of my traditional training did my patient start to heal.
How long did it take you to do the book?
About 5 years.
And what brought you to Miss Gilbert?
I was at a publishing event in 2003, and the defendant was one of many experts that presented that day, and she said that she could help me get my book published.
How much was Miss Gilbert's fee?
Her fee was $150 for an hour of coaching over the phone.
And what kind of things did she coach you about?
Well, she talked about having a branding, who I was going to be. She told me about this fantastic opportunity to be a co-author in a book along with big names such as Dr. Phil, Deepak Chopra, and Wayne Dyer. And I would need to pay $5,000 to, under a tight deadline, write a chapter in the book. So then in October of 2004, I wrote a check for $5,000, sent it to the publisher, Linda, and then 2 weeks later...
The publisher is not Linda. What's the name of the publisher of this book?
Her name is Linda, and her corporate
company, yeah,
logo is Mentors Publishing House.
Never heard of them.
Neither had I.
So what'd you just write him a check for $5,000 for, Dr. Richmond?
Well, at the time...
Doctors are notoriously bad businessmen, sir.
It was a good sell to be associated with these big-name authors.
Yeah, but you got to do your own due diligence, Dr. Richmond. You know, if somebody said, I'm doing an ensemble work with Dr. Phil and some other notable people, you would think that this ensemble work would be published by somebody that you would heard of.
Well, there was 2 other books, so they had a track record of putting out 2 books previously. Correct.
In how many years?
I'm not sure exactly.
So in their whole history as a publishing house, all you knew of was 2 books they had published?
Correct. But there were celebrities in the first 2 editions.
Like who?
Zig Ziglar.
I never heard of her.
Donald Trump is in the 3rd edition. So it sounded really good.
What 3rd edition?
Well, this book that I was enticed to be a part of.
Has it been published?
It just came out in the last couple of weeks.
Is that right?
Yes. In fact, Judge Judy, would you like a copy of it? I've autographed it.
I'd just like to look at it. I don't want a copy. I have enough to read. By the way, in case you want a picture of Zig Ziglar, this is what he looks like.
That's him.
All right, so you sent $5,000 into this publisher. Go ahead, what happened?
I wrote the chapter. Then in late January, early February 2005, there were some changes in the publication and a delay in when the book was coming out. I started to get uncomfortable with the changes that were happening.
Like what changes?
Instead of 40 authors, there was going to be 70 authors. Chuck Norris was going to be on the cover of the book. He's not in alignment with the work that I do. And then on February 7th, I discovered that the defendant, my coach, was not only getting compensation from me, but also from Linda, the publisher. In exchange for bringing people in, she would get to write the foreword and have her picture on the cover of the book. And that was in an email that I only discovered February 7th. She never disclosed this to me. I was shocked. My confidence in her began to evaporate.
Did you have to pay $5,000 to get into this book?
I did not.
And the reason you didn't have to pay $5,000 to get into this book is because you brought other clients into the book?
Right. The relationship.
Just a second.
Yes.
My questions, your answers. Did you at any time tell Dr. Richmond that you were involved as a co-author in this project, but that you were being compensated in part for bringing in other prospective authors?
Yes.
When did you tell him that?
At the inception of the discussion of whether he would come in or not, because one of the questions that they had was whose picture would be on the front, and at that time, the publisher had offered that my picture would be in that larger space there on the cover.
That doesn't answer my question. You can write a chapter, but if everybody who's writing a chapter pays $5,000, and in exchange for your bringing in other authors who were getting a free ride, my question is, did you tell that to Dr. Richmond?
I did not state it in those words.
Well, those are the words that you should have used, Ms. Gilbert.
If I could clarify one thing for Judge Judy, though, the $5,000 fee is not a fee. You made a commitment to purchase 1,000 copies.
There's no difference between buying 1,000 copies and paying $5,000 to get in, because it all goes to the publisher. They are at least assured of 1,000 copies, and if they get 70 authors to each contribute $5,000, that means that they have guaranteed themselves 70,000 copies of the book being sold, which guarantees them a spot on some list that says we've already sold 70,000 copies, and therefore you should read this book. That's sort of a no-brainer.
It's
right,
marketing.
Ms. Gilbert?
Absolutely, it's marketing.
So that wasn't explained to him, that the $5,000 is that you can get 1,000 copies of this book. You don't have 1,000 friends. What you're going to do is you're going to take pieces of your library. You put 500 in one house and 500 in another house, and some in the kitchen and some in the living room. I've written books, I know. I got stacks of them all over my house. Some were sold. Summed it up. Listen to me. You had an obligation to tell him that you were also representing other people who were going to be contributing to this book, and in exchange for your curing other people, which the publisher wanted, because I guarantee you, Dr. Phil didn't have to pay $5,000 to get into the book. Chuck Norris didn't have to pay $5,000 to get into the book. Nice-looking man. They don't know who he is. You got to pay the $5,000. It's marketing.
It's marketing, and that's the point. All of the coaching calls that
you have to tell him.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I don't know what was written there.
I mean, not as
Dr. Howard Richmond says publishing consultant Susan Gilbert scammed him on a book deal.
Can I say this for a second, Bert? Don't get too involved with it. Let's see. We have people like Dan Kennedy, Cynthia Bull, Brian Tracy, Carol Ann Hamilton. How many people did you represent here, Miss Gilbert?
I represented 4 people.
And did each of those people pay $5,000?
Yes, they did.
Okay, because they were not celebrities.
Absolutely.
Did each of those other 4 people know about the other people?
I did not spell out everything as it's coming out in this courtroom, but Howard knew that I was inviting him in, and I was inviting other people to participate, and I explained how it worked.
You should have explained the whole piece to him. You left out some very important things.
That doesn't take away the benefit that he would have received and all the things that we discussed.
He's not a child, Miss Gilbert.
You're right.
He's not a child. So what you're supposed to do is, if he is retaining you in what I consider an almost quasi-fiduciary relationship, you don't treat him like a child. You give him all the facts and then let him make a judgment. Now, it might have been a wrong judgment for him not to participate in this book. He might have gotten his name in print, so at least he was a published author. But your responsibility to your client, if he was your primary client, was to make sure that he had all the facts. Now, did you get your book published?
Not yet.
You got a possibility?
Of course.
Good. Now, I don't necessarily think Miss Gilbert is dishonest. I think that she didn't realize who her master was. Her master was the person who had hired her to help him publish his book. Quite honestly, Dr. Richmond, in all probability, had you not gotten your money back, because you got your $5,000 back.
No, I did not.
You did not?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Well, as a matter of fact, when I decided to withdraw from the project and ask the publisher for my money back, on February 25th, the publisher agreed to send me the check that day. I waited. No check. Then I discover my coach, my agent, told her directly not to give me my money back.
How do you know that?
I heard it verbally from the defendant, and also I have an email from the publisher that confirms the conversation.
What did you say to the publisher?
I don't know what was written there.
I'm not asking you what was written here. I'm asking you what you said to the publisher that resulted in the publisher not sending him back his check.
I care very deeply, even though it doesn't appear that it's coming out that way. I care about my coaching clients.
I asked you what you told the publisher.
That I wanted to speak with Howard before he withdrew, because I felt he was making a really bad business decision, that everything that he and I had been working towards for months would be helpful in this book release. And so I wanted an opportunity to speak with him.
Well, did you speak to him?
I did, and he still withdrew.
Just a second. Did you then call back the publisher and say?
Multiple times.
And say, give him back his check?
Absolutely. Multiple times I have requested, and I thought that she would. But Dr. Richmond
just a
has
second.
taken
But
him to
this
court.
says Yes, I held off sending the check because of my conversation with Susan.
Which is what I said, that I wanted to speak with Howard.
So you never got your money back?
No, Your
He
Honor.
took them to court and wanted judgment.
Did you get paid?
No.
When did you get your judgment?
June 6th, and I have a copy of that if you would like to see it.
I would.
It's June 1st.
You have any idea why you haven't gotten your money?
Lack of integrity.
Have you called them?
Yes.
And what have they said?
No response. Tried to get the money from the bank account. No money there. Cat and mouse game.
Our client has said, I want my money back. The people are ready to send you your check. You say, don't send him his check. I want to talk to him. It's not up to you.
If he's hired me as his coach and I feel that he's making a mistake, I'd like to speak with him before that happens.
You had no business speaking to the publisher about him. You don't know who your master is in this situation. You took money from him. You are his advocate.
As I was advocating for him that this was a good project.
He's not a baby. It's up to him to make a judgment as to whether or not he believes that he wants to go forward with this project. You know, Chuck Norris is a very nice man. He says, I don't want to be in a book with Chuck Norris on the cover. I don't know why. I've met Chuck Norris. He's got a lovely man. He's got a lovely wife. Their philosophies may be inconsistent. Who knows? That's not up to you. That's up to him. How much did he pay you?
How much did he pay me?
Yeah.
A total of $2,500 over 6 months for 17 sessions. And when I begin to work with someone, Judge
So
Judy,
far, he's out $5,000 plus another $2,500, and he doesn't have a book. And the $5,000 of that $7,500, put it down. $5,000, Miss Gilbert, out of the $7,500 is because of you. Sounds to me like better practice would be not to come in front of 10 million people and tell your story, but to give him back his $2,500. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
There was nothing in
Soundstress versus Macias. Step forward.
27-year-old Tina Soundtress is suing her ex-boyfriend, 26-year-old Alvaro Macias, for the cost of a digital camera and the accessories. Tina says Alvaro's neglect caused the camera to be stolen.
Miss Soundtress, Mr. Macias used to be your boyfriend, then you broke up, then he was your friend, and according to your complaint, you allowed him to borrow a camera of yours. Right. And unfortunately, the camera was lost or stolen while it was in his possession. You want a new camera.
Right.
Mr. Macias says, I offered her a camera, the same kind of camera that she had. She did a different model that's twice as expensive as the one that I borrowed. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
They don't make the same model as the camera anymore that I had.
Well, tell me about the camera that you let him borrow, because clearly he's responsible. The only issue is, what is he responsible for?
Well, I loaned him the camera, a lens, the case, and the memory card.
How much did you pay for it when you purchased it?
It was around $1,200.
You have the receipt?
Yes, I do.
Let me see it.
That's for the camera, and this is for the case. They don't make the same model anymore.
So?
So I wouldn't be able to get the camera, so I feel that I should be allowed the model that replaces my camera.
No, darling. No. Let us say that he borrowed your 1987 Chevy Camaro, and he damaged the car so that you couldn't drive it. But they don't make a 1987 Chevy Camaro anymore. You don't get a 2006 Chevy. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand.
Does that make it simple for you?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, so now I'll hear you.
I do a lot of different things.
I'm not interested in what you do.
Okay.
I'm interested in the fact that she had a relatively new camera. She lent it to you, either through your own negligence, because if the camera was in your possession at all times, it wouldn't have gotten stolen and it wouldn't have gotten lost.
Yes.
All right. Now, you're not responsible to buy her a brand new Cadillac. You're responsible to replace it or give her the money that she spent for it.
But let me explain to you what happened.
I don't care what happened.
Does it matter what she said to me?
No. She's suing you. You're going to tell me she said, forget it, I don't use it anymore?
Yes.
I don't care. Now, she changed her mind. That's what women do. They change her mind. Men don't ask for directions. Women change their mind.
I work for a newspaper, and I also do a radio show. Me and my business partner went to New York for a conference, all right? It's a Latin rap conference. She's a fan of the music.
I don't care. I don't care. She bought the camera with her own money, and you lost it. Now you have to replace it.
And I did. I work for a newspaper. We went over there to take all these pictures. I told him, watch the camera. It was the end of an artist showcase. And I went to get all this other stuff.
Listen to me. I'm not interested in how it got stolen and how it got lost. It's your responsibility. How many times do I have to say that?
Okay, but I did. When I got back, I told her what happened, okay? I said, let me figure something out, because it's a lot of money. That's an expensive camera. I had told her, don't get that camera, because it's too expensive, okay? But anyways, that's not the point. I told her I'd figure
Listen to me. Just tell me things that are the point. It's very late and I'm hungry. It's lunchtime.
All right.
So I want you to just tell me the point.
All right, I managed to, the newspaper I work for, I managed to get them to give me this camera. I have the same exact camera at the newspaper. I talked to them.
Just a minute.
The same exact model.
Listen to me. You have a brand new, same camera that she purchased. Is that what you're telling me?
It's not brand new.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,225.
245 on the calendar in the matter of Crump versus Griffin. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, ladies.
Mr. Crump, it is your allegation in this complaint that the defendant, who was a girlfriend of yours at one point, had you falsely arrested for domestic violence.
That's correct.
The charges were subsequently dismissed.
That's correct.
And you wanted to pay for your lawyer's fees, punitive damages, and your lost wages.
That's correct.
Ms. Griffin said that you were out of control on this particular day. She had every right to call the police. So the ball is in your court. You're going to tell me first the date of this incident.
The date of this incident happened July 21st. And it started earlier on the 20th. Me and Marquise had an argument.
That's Marquise?
Yes. Because he had found out that I was pregnant by my ex. He had left my house. I had called him
You would
later
live
on.
together?
No. I was at my house. He had left my house. I tried to call him, could not get through to him. Finally, he called me back. We had an argument over the phone.
What was the argument about?
You lied to me, you know, you told me that you were with him, and then now...
That sort of
thing. Oh. He hung up the phone with me. I was upset. My car wasn't working, so I walked to my friend Shannon's house, who she was a witness in the red. I walked to her house. I was in tears. I just found out I was pregnant, which was a Saturday before. She's like, Aaron, what you need to do is you need to just come clean. You need to tell Julie, because me and Julie became friends.
Julie is?
Julie is his so-called roommate.
Julie?
Yes. Yes.
You have to tell Julie. What do you have to tell Julie?
Basically what was going on, because he was lying to both of us. He was telling me she is just a roommate. They don't do anything together. They don't sleep in the same room. Had everybody fooled. In the long run, I became friends with her, and she's telling me they do sleep in the same bed every night, and they've been for 4 years. So basically, he's been playing the both of us. So my friend Shannon had... My friend Shannon had told me to be the better woman, let him ruin that household and not me. So I had walked over to Shannon. She was on her porch, Julie.
How far does Shannon live from Julie?
Right across the street.
So you went over to her house, and she said to you, go and tell her...
She said it would be in your best interest.
All right. She told you to go and tell her that her alleged boyfriend / roommate was two-timing her.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you do that?
Julie was on her porch when I was walking, and she had asked me what was wrong, because I was all upset. And I walked in Shannon's house. Shannon met me at the door. We went upstairs. I told her everything that happened. She's like, you need to just tell Julie. So I called Julie on the phone, and she's like, tell me. I said, I think you should come over here. I told her everything that she did not know. She knew a little bit because she did have Marquise's passcode to his phone and was listening to messages, and that's how she put 2 and 2 together. I told her everything. She couldn't get a hold of him on the phone. She kept calling him. Finally, he called back. She talked to him. He told her basically some of the truth.
Whatever. Were you on the phone? Did you listen to it?
I was right in front of her.
You were right there. Oh, okay.
At that point...
Just a second. Marquise.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I take care of elderly people, transporting them to doctor's appointments, surgery.
Is that a full-time job?
Yes. Yes,
I
ma'am.
think you need another job. Keep your social life simpler. Do you know what I'm talking about, Marquise? Got to keep your social life simple. Things get complicated. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
Well, ma'am, I do tell the truth.
Which one of these ladies were you telling the truth to?
Well, actually, I was lying to one of them, and the one I was staying with, I was telling the truth to.
You were lying to her?
Yes.
But not to her. So what you're telling me is that you told her about her?
Well, she already knew about her.
No, I didn't ask you what you knew. I'm asking, did you tell her, Julie,
Yes.
about Miss Griffin?
Yes.
From the beginning?
No.
So then you lied to her?
That's correct.
So then you lied to both of them?
At the present time, that's correct.
See how easy that was?
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Listen, now I get the background. The background is he got 1 prize and 2 potential prize winners. Let's get to July 21st. So now you've told Marquise's girlfriend that Marquise is a bum.
Basically.
Let's move on.
Okay. This is all rolling into the 21st.
Roll into it.
Okay. At the time, I had gotten on the phone with him, and we had arguments, screaming back and forth at each other, and he was on his way home, and he was saying, well,
what were you screaming at him for? While you were dating him?
Lying.
Listen to me. While you were dating him, you were clearly dating somebody else.
Right.
Because you don't get pregnant from sitting on a bad potty.
Right.
You know, those stories don't wash anymore.
Well, me and that other person were off at that time.
I don't care.
And-
Off, on. Listen to me. While you were involved, which is the reason why he was angry initially when you told him,
Right.
was because you weren't completely honest with him.
No, I was not.
So that you all sort of deserve each other. You do. And so I don't see why you wanted to get back at him. Do you work?
Yes, I do. I have 2 jobs.
3. Get to it. Tell me how we went out of control.
Well, we had argued, and we brought it basically over the phone, went to outside. Me, Shannon, and Amanda at the time, who she also was there. She came as I was telling Julie. We were all sitting on her porch. We had arguments about the whole situation, and he walked away. As he walked away, we were both saying things back and forth to each other from house to house, basically. Now, this is into the 21st. It's about probably 2.
I got it.
Then from there, he said, well, if you're a woman about it, come over here. So I walked over to the middle of the street to not go on her property, and I was saying things back and forth. He had the nerve to talk about my children, who had nothing to do with it. Screamed out to me about me taking care of my kids. And I said, the last thing I said to him was, you need to do is take care of you and your family, referring to Julie and his kids, because that's what he considers them. He was like, you're talking about my son, you're talking about my son. As he's coming towards me, I said, you better not come near me. And I'm walking towards Shannon's house, back on her steps, and he kept going on about talking about his son, and I said, Julie, get your man. And she said, tell him you're not talking about his son. I never said his name. I said, his family, referring to you and your kids. From that point on, he was smacked me right on my arm. My phone went flying. I called the cops, told them specifically there was a big black man who hit me. I need the cops here. I am pregnant.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You know that he was fooling.
And Aaron Griffin had him falsely arrested for assault. Aaron says Marquise slapped a cell phone out of her hand.
She slapped the phone out.
I slapped the phone out of her hand, Your Honor.
I want to tell you something. She started the trouble. No question about it. She even instigated it by walking out into the middle of the street. I give that to you. You can't touch her. You were angry? You can't put your hands on her. The case was dismissed because it's a whole lot of baloney. But the issue in this case is, did she have the right to call the police because you came into physical contact with her? And the answer is she had the right to do that. I really wish you hadn't, because if you hadn't put your hands on her, I would have found in your favor.
Well, Your Honor, I didn't consider the phone being, as far as me putting my hands on her. I smacked the phone. I didn't smack her. I mean, that's what I was arrested for, allegedly.
No, you just told me you slapped her hand, the phone was in her hand.
I smacked the phone.
The phone was in her hand. Put your hand down. I don't need any help. She started the trouble. She's an instigator. Should have just let it rest. Because you had 2 guilty people. You sort of deserved each other. So I don't know why you're getting this lady involved for. Anyway, Mr. Crump, are you happy with Julie?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you living with him?
Been for 4 years, and she's known that.
You know that he was fooling around with somebody else while he was living with you?
Yes.
You know about her?
Yes.
You know about anybody else?
Yes.
How many others?
From, it was before we were even together.
I'm talking about the last 4 years. Just her?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you think?
Mm-hmm.
Think again. Trust me. Think again.